I poured my heart and soul into my brother Nathan's wedding, spending over $22,000 of my own savings to make it perfect. Every cent was for him and Jessica, to give them the Dallas wedding of their dreams. But the morning after, as I sat with my coffee, I checked my bank account and felt my stomach drop. $8,400, gone. Stolen. By my own mother, Diane. My hands shook as I stared at the screen, seeing the transfer to her account, made during the reception when I was too busy to notice. In Texas, family's supposed to be your rock, but mine betrayed me in the worst way. I'd given everything, my money, my time, my health, only to be used and discarded. This isn't just about the money. It's about the moment I decided to fight back. I confronted my family, exposed their lies, and demanded my worth. If you've ever felt betrayed by those you love most, stay with me. This is my story of standing up and taking back what's mine. Share your story in the comments. What would you do if your family crossed that line? I'm Allison, 31 years old, an event coordinator living in Dallas, Texas. My life revolves around creating moments that matter. Weddings, anniversaries, community gatherings, all on budgets that don't break the bank. I've spent years turning small budgets into big memories, from backyard vow renewals to corporate galas at Dallas' finest venues. It's work I love, work that's mine, built from scratch in a city where hard work and grit are everything. But my proudest moment wasn't planning a perfect event. It was standing up to my family after they betrayed me in a way that cut deeper than I could have imagined. This story isn't just about money, though losing $8,400 to my own mother stung. It's about realizing my worth, fighting for it, and breaking free from a lifetime of being pushed aside. Growing up in Texas, you're taught family is sacred, the foundation of everything. You sacrifice, you show up, you keep the peace. For me, that meant giving everything. My savings, my time, my heart, only to learn that love shouldn't come at such a cost. In Dallas, we wear our pride like a badge, but we don't always talk about the pain behind it. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, or given more than you could afford to keep them happy, you're not alone. Stick with me as I share how I faced that pain head-on. Have you ever had to choose between family and yourself? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear your story. I grew up in the Mitchell family, where appearances were everything. My parents, Richard and Diane, ran a successful real estate empire in Dallas, building luxury homes across Plano and Frisco. To the outside world, we were picture perfect. Big ranch-style house, manicured lawn, the kind of family you'd see on a Dallas society page. But inside those walls, it was different. Cold. My father's office was a fortress, off limits unless he summoned you. My mother's perfectionism was a constant weight. My posture was never straight enough, my choices never good enough. And then there was my younger brother, Nathan, the golden child. From the moment he was born, he was their pride and joy, destined to take over Mitchell Properties. I was the afterthought, expected to smile, marry well, and fade into the background. It was like living in a shadow, always trying to prove I deserved a place in the light. In Texas, family loyalty is everything. You don't question it, you don't push back. But in our house, loyalty meant knowing your place. For me, that place was below Nathan. His mediocre grades were excused, his mistakes brushed off, his future paved with opportunities one could only dream of. I remember being 12, watching Dad teach Nathan about property deals while I was told to help Mom set the table. By 16, I knew my role. Support the family, don't outshine the star. Mom would say, "Allison, don't be so serious, it's not ladylike." Dad's criticism was sharper. "Why can't you be more like Nathan?" That question followed me, a quiet ache that never left. In Dallas, where community and kin are sacred, I learned to swallow my hurt to keep the peace. But peace at what cost? It's a question I wish I'd asked sooner. If your family ever made you feel less than, I see you. Share your experience below, let's talk about it. I threw myself into school, determined to earn my place. I got into Southern Methodist University here in Dallas, majoring in business, thinking a degree would finally make them see me. Didn't. After graduation, I joined Mitchell Properties, hoping to prove my worth in their world. But it was a nightmare. The workplace was toxic. Nepotism ruled, my ideas were dismissed in meetings, and Dad once called my marketing plans childish in front of the whole team. Mom was worse. When I told her I wanted to leave to start my own event planning business, she laughed. Event planning? Allison, that's a hobby, not a career. Dad was blunt. You're throwing away opportunities most people would kill for. But I couldn't stay. I walked away, moved into a one-bedroom apartment in Dallas Bishop Arts District, and started from zero. Those first years were brutal. I lived on ramen, worked 16-hour days, and pitched to every client I could find. Rejection after rejection, I kept going, building a reputation for creating flawless events, weddings, birthdays, even small Texas barbecues, on tight budgets. It wasn't the Mitchell fortune, but it was mine, earned through sweat and sleepless nights. I found pride in turning a couple's vision into reality without draining their savings. In Dallas, where big money and bigger egos dominate, I carved out my own space, proving you don't need wealth to create something meaningful. But every step felt like a fight against my family's expectations. They never saw my work as serious, never saw me as enough. Leaving the family business was more than a career move. It was a rebellion. In Texas, we're raised to stick with family, to honor tradition. Quitting felt like betraying that, like turning my back on everything Dallas stands for. But staying meant betraying myself. I chose me even when it hurt. Even when Mom called my new life a phase, or Dad refused to ask about my business. I kept going, saving every dollar for a condo, a place to call my own in a city that demands you prove your worth. That savings became my lifeline, my proof I could stand on my own. But when Nathan got engaged, everything I'd built was put to the test. My family pulled me back in, and I let them, thinking this time they'd value me. I was wrong. If you've ever left something behind to find yourself, what was it like? Share your story in the comments. I'm listening. 3 years ago, my brother Nathan met Jessica Barnes at a glitzy Dallas charity gala, the kind where everyone's dressed to impress and deals are made over champagne. Jessica's family owned a chain of luxury hotels across Texas, from Houston to Austin, the kind of wealth that turned heads in our city. When Nathan proposed after just 8 months, my parents, Richard and Diane, didn't just see a wedding, they saw a merger. A chance to tie the Mitchell name to the Barnes empire. I was happy for Nathan, or at least I tried to be. But deep down I knew what was coming. In the Mitchell family, big moments like this weren't about love, they were about status. And in Dallas, status is everything. It started at a family dinner in our Plano home, the same one where I'd spent my childhood trying to measure up. Mom announced the wedding would be the event of the season. We're booking the Adolphus Hotel, she said, her voice brimming with pride. The ballroom can hold 300 guests. I nearly choked on my water. 300. I'd assumed it would be intimate, maybe 100 close friends and family. Jessica laughed, a sharp, polished sound. Nathan's my only shot at a wedding, Allison. I don't do intimate. My father cleared his throat. His usual signal that the decision was final. We'll cover the major expenses. Venue, catering, Jessica's dress. And the honeymoon, of course. Jessica's father, sitting across the table, nodded. We'll handle some costs too. It's a partnership. I sat there, picking at Mom's under-seasoned chicken, feeling the familiar weight of being sidelined. In Texas, weddings are more than celebrations. They're statements. A big Dallas wedding, especially at a place like the Adolphus, screams success, power, connection. I could see Mom's eyes gleaming, already picturing the spread in D magazine. Nathan and Jessica were the stars, and I was expected to play my part, whatever that would be. I should have spoken up, set boundaries right then. But in our family, saying no wasn't an option. Not yet. Growing up in Texas, you learn to keep family harmony, even when it costs you. I told myself this was for Nathan, for love. But love doesn't demand silence. If you've ever been pulled into a family plan you didn't choose, you know that feeling. What was it like for you? Share it in the comments, I'm listening. Before that dinner ended, Mom turned to me with that look, the one that meant I was about to be volunteered for something. Allison, with your event planning connections, you can handle the flowers and decorations, right? Maybe the photography too. It wasn't a question. I opened my mouth to protest, but Jessica chimed in. That'd be so helpful. And Dad nodded like it was settled. By the time dessert was served, I'd somehow agreed to manage what they called small details. I should have known better. In the Mitchell family, small always meant something else. Over the next few weeks, those small details grew into a beast I couldn't control. Flowers turned into custom floral installations, orchid garlands suspended over every table, inspired by some Pinterest board Jessica loved. Photography became a top-tier Dallas photographer who charged a fortune for candids. Then came the venue deposit, welcome baskets for out-of-town guests, upgraded linens, a premium open bar package. Each time I raised concerns about the costs, Mom waved me off. It's Nathan's only wedding, Allison. Don't be selfish. Jessica would pout, saying, It's my dream day. Nathan, as usual, was nowhere to be found during these planning sessions, leaving me to navigate Mom and Jessica's demands alone. In Dallas, where weddings are a social currency, I felt the pressure to deliver perfection, even if it wasn't my day. I started dipping into my savings, the money I'd been scraping together for a condo in Bishop Arts, my dream of a place to call my own. It began with small expenses, $500 for a florist deposit, $1,000 for welcome baskets. But it snowballed fast. $5,000 became $10,000, then $15,000. Before I knew it, I'd committed nearly all my savings, $22,786, to Nathan and Jessica's perfect day. I told myself it was an investment in family, that maybe this time they'd see my worth, that this time they'd say thank you. I was wrong. In Texas, we're raised to put family first, to show up no matter the cost. But nobody told me the cost could be my future. Every time I hesitated, Mom would guilt me with that same line. Don't be selfish. Jessica would add, It's just one day, Allison. But it wasn't just one day, it was my savings, my security, my dreams. I kept going, thinking if I pulled this off, they'd finally respect me. I'd spent years building my event planning business, proving I could create magic on a budget. But with this wedding, my expertise was exploited, dismissed as just helping out. Mom once said, Anyone could have handled the flowers, Allison. It's not that hard. Stung, but I swallowed it like always. In Dallas, keeping the stew homonym up appearances is an art form. I mastered it for years. But this time I was breaking. Have you ever given more than you should for family? What was it like to say no? Drop your story in the comments. Let's share the weight of it. The wedding planning consumed me. My life became a blur of spreadsheets, vendor calls, and late nights. My one-bedroom apartment in Bishop Arts turned into a storage unit for wedding supplies. Fabric swatches, sample centerpieces, boxes of welcome basket trinkets. I was working 16-hour days, taking on extra clients to cover the mounting costs. Corporate events, kids' birthday parties, even a last-minute bar mitzvah. I said yes to everything, desperate to keep my bank account afloat. But it wasn't enough. My savings, my dream of a condo, was draining fast. 2 months before the wedding, I sat on my apartment floor, surrounded by receipts, and added it up. $22,786. My future poured into Nathan's big day. Then Mom called, insisting on a custom ice sculpture for the cocktail hour. Another $2,000. I felt sick, my hands shaking as I transferred the money. What was I doing? Why couldn't I stop? My health started to crumble. I wasn't sleeping, 4 hours a night maybe. My back ached constantly, my head throbbed, and my social life vanished. Friends stopped texting after I canceled plans too many times. My best friend, Rachel, was the only one who saw through it. Over coffee at Fiction Coffee in Dallas, she didn't hold back. "They're using you, Allison. You know that, right?" I sighed. "It's family, Rachel." She shook her head, stirring her latte hard. "Family doesn't bleed you dry. Have they even thanked you?" I couldn't answer. They hadn't. Instead, I got criticism. My floral ideas were too plain, my vendor picks not up to standard, my budget concerns petty. In Texas, family's supposed to lift you up, but mine was tearing me down. The night before the wedding, I was at the Adolphus until midnight, directing the setup crew, fixing last-minute crises. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Don't forget Jessica's mom's gluten-free breakfast tomorrow. 7 a.m. sharp." I hadn't slept properly in weeks. Standing in that half-decorated ballroom, I felt a chill, like I was setting the stage for my own downfall. In Dallas, we're taught to grin and bear it, to keep family first. But at what point does family become a trap? I kept going, believing this wedding would finally earn their respect. I was wrong. My savings were nearly gone, my energy spent, and for what? A thank you that never came. A moment of approval that didn't exist. Looking back, I see how deeply I'd internalized their expectations. In Texas, we don't talk about saying no to family. It's practically a sin. But every dollar I spent, every sleepless night, was a choice I made to please them. I thought love meant sacrifice. But sacrifice shouldn't mean losing yourself. If you've ever felt trapped by family obligations, I get it. That moment when you realize you've given too much, it's heavy. But it's also the start of something new. Have you ever reached that breaking point? What pushed you over the edge? Share your story in the comments. I'm here for it. The morning after Nathan's wedding, I woke up with a pounding headache and a gnawing sense of dread. The reception had been a blur, running between vendors, fixing last-minute crises, barely pausing to breathe. I made a strong cup of coffee, sat at my kitchen table in my Dallas apartment, and opened my laptop to check my bank account. Routine, I thought, just making sure everything was in order. But as the screen loaded, my heart stopped. A transfer dated last night at 9:17 p.m., right in the middle of the reception. $8,400 gone. The recipient, Diane Mitchell, my mother. My hands trembled as I stared at the screen, the words blurring. Transfer to Diane Mitchell, wedding expenses. I hadn't authorized this. I hadn't even been near my phone. I checked again, hoping it was a glitch, a mistake, anything but what it looked like. But the numbers didn't lie. My own mother had taken my money. In Texas, family is supposed to be your safe haven, the people you trust with everything. I'd grown up believing that, raised in a Dallas suburb where loyalty to kin was unquestioned. But this was betrayal, cold and calculated. I felt the room tilt, my coffee turning bitter in my mouth. I'd spent $22,786 on Nathan's wedding. My entire savings, money I'd saved for a condo, my future. And now, another $8,400 stolen in the night. My mind raced, replaying the reception. I'd been everywhere. Checking the florals, calming Jessica, finding Nathan for photos. My phone had been in my clutch at the head table, unguarded. Anyone could have picked it up. But only one person would have known what to do with it. The realization hit like a punch. My mother, who'd dismissed my sacrifices, had crossed a line I never thought possible. In Dallas, we're taught to keep family secrets buried. But this wasn't a secret, it was theft. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, you know this pain. What was your moment of truth? Share it in the comments, I'm listening. As the shock settled, A memory from the reception clawed its way back. I was passing the hotel office, a small room the Adolphus had given us for storage. The door was ajar, and I heard my mother's voice, low and sharp. "It's already done," she said. "She'll never even notice." Then Nathan, hesitant. "I don't know, Mom. Allie's already spent so much." My mother's reply was dismissive. "Don't be ridiculous, Nathan. It's for the family." I'd stepped away quickly, heart pounding, not wanting to believe what I'd heard. But now, staring at my bank account, it made sense. They'd planned it. My own family. I called the bank, my voice shaking as I navigated their automated system. When I finally reached a representative, I explained the unauthorized transfer. "I see it," she said, her tone clinical. "It was made through your mobile app, using your credentials." I nearly dropped the phone. "That's impossible." "I wasn't using my phone at 9:17 p.m. She asked. "Was your phone in your possession all evening, Ms. Mitchell?" Froze. My clutch had been at the head table during dinner. I was running around, checking the band, soothing Jessica's mom. Anyone could have grabbed it. Then it hit me. My banking app required a PIN, Nathan's birthday. A number my mother knew by heart. In Texas, we share everything with family, even the little things like pins. I never thought mine would be a weapon. I started gathering evidence, my hands still unsteady. Screenshots of the transfer, timestamp texts to the band leader at 9:08 p.m., to the venue coordinator at 9:25 p.m. Proof I wasn't near my phone. I pulled bank statements for 6 months, every wedding expense I'd covered. In Dallas, we're raised to trust family blindly, to believe they'd never hurt you. But trust doesn't mean giving up your guard. I learned that the hard way. If you've ever had to piece together a betrayal, what clues did you find? Drop your story below, I want to hear it. I sat in my apartment, surrounded by wedding receipts, staring at my laptop as the reality sank in. My mother had stolen from me. My brother knew, maybe didn't stop her, maybe even helped. The people I'd spent my life trying to please had used me, taken my money, my trust, my future. I felt like I was drowning, the weight of $22,786 already spent on Nathan's wedding crushing me. And now, another $8,400 gone. My condo fund, my dream of a home in Bishop Arts, was slipping away. I felt humiliated, like every sacrifice I'd made for them, every late night, every missed meal, every cancelled plan was a joke. A wave of nausea hit, and tears came before I could stop them. I'd given everything to be the daughter they wanted, and it still wasn't enough. In Texas, we don't talk about family betrayals. You keep it quiet, keep the peace, especially in a city like Dallas where appearances matter more than truth. But this wasn't just a misunderstanding, it was a violation. My mother had taken my phone, used my PIN, and stolen money I'd worked years to save. Nathan's hesitation in that office conversation echoed in my mind. "Allie's already spent so much," he'd said. But he didn't stop her. He let it happen. I felt like the little girl again, the one always pushed aside for the golden child. The one whose feelings didn't matter. In Dallas, we're taught family is your backbone, but mine had broken me. I texted my friend Sophia, a lawyer here in Dallas. "They stole from me," I said, my voice breaking. $8,400. Sophia was calm but firm. "That's theft, Allison. You need to act." She agreed to meet me that afternoon, promising to help draft a demand letter. As I waited, I kept gathering evidence. Every receipt, every text, every proof I wasn't near my phone. It felt methodical, like assembling a case against strangers, not my family. But that's what they'd become. In Texas, we're raised to forgive family, to sweep things under the rug. But some things can't be swept away. Some betrayals demand justice. I thought about every time I'd let their criticism slide. Every time I'd swallowed my hurt to keep the family happy. I'd spent years believing love meant sacrifice, that my worth was tied to what I could give them. But sitting there, surrounded by the wreckage of my savings, I saw it clearly. Love shouldn't cost you everything. It shouldn't leave you empty. In Dallas, where family ties are sacred, I'd been taught to give until it hurt. But this hurt too much. This was the moment I decided I wasn't going to be their doormat anymore. I was done. If you've ever felt that moment when trust shatters, when you realize family isn't what you thought, I see you. What was your breaking point? Share it in the comments, let's talk about it. The day after Nathan's wedding, I woke up with a knot in my stomach, the kind that told me something was about to break. I'd spent the night piecing together evidence of my mother's theft. Screenshots, texts, a lawyer's letter from my friend Sophia. $8,400, stolen from my account during the reception, on top of the $22,786 I'd already poured into the wedding. My family had used me, and I was done staying silent. But as I drove to my parents' house in Plano for the post-wedding brunch, my hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. This wasn't just a meal, it was a reckoning. Their house was the same as always. A sprawling ranch-style home, the lawn perfectly manicured. Halloween pumpkins lined up on the porch like a magazine cover. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and smoked salmon, Mom's go-to for impressing guests. The dining room was packed. Jessica's parents, some Dallas society friends, Nathan and Jessica glowing like newlyweds should. Mom held court at the head of the table, her voice bright as she bragged about her wedding, as if I hadn't spent months making it happen. "The Adolphus was stunning, wasn't it?" she said, smiling at Jessica's mom. "I made sure every detail was perfect." I sat there, my plate untouched, the folder of evidence burning a hole in my bag. My heart pounded, but I waited, watching them laugh, sip mimosas, act like nothing was wrong. In Texas, you don't air family drama in public. You keep it behind closed doors, especially at a brunch like this, where Dallas elite are watching. Every part of me wanted to stay quiet, to play the good daughter, to keep the peace like I'd been taught. But peace had cost me too much. My savings, my health, my sense of self. I thought about every time I'd swallowed my pain for this family, every time Mom had dismissed me, every time Dad had looked through me, every time Nathan got a pass while I got criticism. This wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about years of being invisible, of being the daughter who didn't matter. In Dallas, we're raised to protect the family name at all costs. But what happens when the family betrays you? What happens when the people who should love you most hurt you the deepest? I took a deep breath, my fingers brushing the folder in my bag. I'd spent my life avoiding conflict, keeping my head down, hoping one day they'd see me. But today, I wasn't asking for their approval. I was demanding my worth. I knew what I was about to do would change everything. The room felt too small, the chatter too loud, but I was ready. In Texas, we're taught to keep family sacred, but sometimes you have to break that rule to save yourself. Have you ever had to face your family head-on? What gave you the courage? Share it in the comments, I want to know. I set my plate down, the clink of china cutting through the brunch chatter. The room didn't notice at first, but I felt every nerve in my body ignite. "I need to say something," I said, my voice low but steady, loud enough to make heads turn. Mom's smile faltered, her eyes narrowing as she sensed trouble. "Allison, can it wait?" she said, her tone sharp, the one she used to shut me down. But I wasn't that girl anymore. "No, Mom. It can't." I pulled the folder from my bag, my hand steady despite the storm inside me. "I checked my bank account this morning. There was a transfer last night during the reception. $8,400. To your account, Mom. You took it." The room went silent, forks frozen mid-air. Jessica's parents exchanged glances, their Dallas polish cracking. Nathan shifted in his seat, his face pale. Mom laughed, a brittle, dismissive sound. "Allison, don't be dramatic. You can't do anything about it anyway." That was her mistake, thinking I was still the daughter who'd back down. I opened the folder, pulling out my evidence. Screenshots of the transfer, time-stamped texts proving I wasn't near my phone, 6 months of bank statements showing every cent I'd spent on the wedding. "That's not all," I said, sliding the papers across the table. "I spent $22,786 on Nathan's wedding. The floral installations, the photographer, the linens, the open bar. All me." "Not you, Mom. Me." Jessica's mom gasped, her hand flying to her chest. "Allison paid for all that?" she asked, her voice tight. Mom's face hardened, but I kept going. "You lied to everyone, Mom. You said you and Dad covered the wedding, but I have the receipts. Every dollar I spent, every sacrifice I made. And then you stole $8,400 from my account. That's theft. Fraud." I pulled out Sophia's letter, the demand for repayment, and a draft police report. "You have 48 hours to return the money, or I file this with the Dallas PD." The air felt electric, every eye on me. Mom tried to recover, her voice sharp. "This is ridiculous, Allison. It was for Nathan's honeymoon, for the family." But her words fell flat. Jessica's glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the hardwood floor, orange mimosa spreading like a wound across Mom's perfect rug. It was as if the whole facade of our family broke with it. Jessica stood, her voice shaking. "You said you paid for the wedding, Diane. I didn't know Allison did all this." She turned to me, tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Allison. I didn't know. In Texas, you don't call out your family in front of others. You don't break the unspoken rule of keeping things private, especially not in a room full of Dallas high society. But I was done with rules that protected lies." I looked at Mom, her face a mask of defiance, and said, "You've spent my whole life telling me I'm not enough, but I'm done letting you define me." Dad, silent until now, picked up the lawyer's letter, his face grim. "Diane, is this true?" he asked, his voice low. Mom snapped. "I did what was needed for Nathan's future." But her words sounded hollow, exposed. I felt the weight of years lifting, the years I'd spent trying to earn their love, to be the daughter they valued. In Dallas, we're taught to keep family first, to protect the name at all costs. But what do you do when the family name is built on your pain? I stood there, staring at the faces I'd loved my whole life, and realized I wasn't just fighting for $8,400. I was fighting for me. For the girl who'd been invisible too long. If you've ever had to stand up to family, to break their rules to reclaim your worth, you know this moment. What was it like for you? Drop your story in the comments. I'm here for it. The silence after the glass shattered felt endless. Mom's face was a mix of anger and shock, her usual control slipping. Dad read Sophia's letter again. His jaw tight, the weight of my evidence sinking in. "Diane," he said, his voice like gravel, "is this true?" Mom's eyes darted to Nathan, then back to me, searching for a way out. "I did what was needed," she said, her voice sharp but unsteady. "It was for Nathan's honeymoon, for the family's future." Nathan finally spoke, his voice small, guilty. "Mom, did you really take her phone?" he asked, looking at her like he was seeing her for the first time. Mom snapped, "Don't you start, Nathan. I did this for you." But Nathan shook his head, turning to me. "Allie, I didn't know she took it." Thought, "I'm sorry." Jessica was still standing, her hands trembling. "Diane, you told me you and Richard paid for everything," she said, her voice breaking. "I didn't know Allison spent all that money. Why didn't you tell me?" Mom's composure cracked, her voice rising. "This is family business, Jessica. Allison's making a scene for no reason." But Jessica's parents weren't buying it. Her father, a stoic Dallas businessman, leaned forward. "Diane, if Allison's telling the truth, this is serious. You need to make this right." The room felt like it was closing in, every word a step toward unraveling the Mitchell family myth. I stood my ground, my voice steady. "You have 48 hours, Mom. Return the money or I file the police report." This isn't a negotiation. In Texas, calling out your family like this is unheard of, especially at a brunch with outsiders watching. Dallas runs on appearances, on keeping things polished and private. But I wasn't playing that game anymore. I'd spent my life protecting their image, swallowing their criticism, believing I had to earn their love. No more. This was my line in the sand. Dad spoke again, his tone measured but firm. "We'll handle this, Allison. Let's talk privately." But I shook my head. "No, Dad. We're done with private. You've all known how much I've given, and you let this happen." I looked at Nathan, his guilt plain on his face. "You knew, Nathan. You didn't stop her." He looked down, unable to meet my eyes. Jessica reached for my hand, whispering, "I'm so sorry, Allison." Her apology meant something, but it couldn't erase the hurt. As I gathered my folder and walked out, I felt every eye on me, judging, shocked, maybe even impressed. In Texas, family drama stays hidden, but I'd just torn the curtain down. I drove away from that Plano house, the autumn air heavy with the weight of what I'd done. I wasn't just fighting for my money. I was fighting for my place, my voice, my worth. In Dallas, we're taught to keep family sacred, but sometimes you have to break that bond to rebuild yourself. I knew this wasn't the end. There'd be fallout, conversations, maybe even apologies. But for the first time I felt free. If you've ever had to walk away from family to save yourself, what was that moment like? Share it in the comments, I'm listening. That evening, as I sat in my Dallas apartment, my phone pinged with a notification that stopped me cold. I opened my banking app, half expecting another disappointment, but there it was. A deposit. $8,400 back in my account. Then another. $14,386, the rest of my wedding contributions, plus a little interest. $22,786 in total. Returned in full. My hands shook as I stared at the numbers, a mix of relief and exhaustion washing over me. My father's email followed minutes later, formal and curt. "Funds returned. Let's discuss how to move forward when you're ready." No apology, no acknowledgement of the betrayal, but the money was there. For the first time in months I could breathe. In Texas, we're taught to keep family disputes quiet, to sweep pain under the rug for the sake of harmony. Getting the money back felt like a victory, but it wasn't the end. The hurt lingered, the sting of my mother's theft, my brother's silence, the years I'd spent trying to earn their love. I sat on my couch, staring at the Dallas skyline through my window, and realized this wasn't just about dollars and cents. It was about reclaiming my worth, about proving I wasn't invisible. I'd stood up to my family, laid bare their lies, and walked away with my head high. That folder of evidence, screenshots, texts, Sophia's letter, hadn't just gotten my money back. It had given me a voice. But the victory was bittersweet. The money was a start, a tangible win, but it couldn't erase the betrayal. In Dallas, where family is supposed to be your foundation, mine had cracked. I knew I'd have to decide what came next, whether to talk to Dad, whether Nathan's guilt was genuine, whether Mom could ever change. For now, I let the moment settle, the weight of the fight still heavy but lighter than before. In Texas, we don't often talk about winning against family, but this was my win, hard-fought and real. Have you ever had a moment where you took back what was yours? What did it feel like? Share it in the comments, I'm here for it. The days after the brunch were a blur, but one thing was clear. I couldn't go back to being the Allison who said yes to everything. I'd lost too much. My savings, my health, my trust in my family. I needed help to make sense of it all, so I started therapy with Dr. Bennett, a Dallas therapist who specialized in family dynamics. Sitting in her office, I felt exposed, like I was admitting defeat. In Texas, we're raised to pull ourselves up, to handle things on our own. Therapy isn't something you talk about at Sunday brunch. But Dr. Bennett changed everything. She helped me see the pattern I'd lived with my whole life. Nathan as the golden child, me as the scapegoat, always expected to give, never to shine. She called it family roles, explaining how my parents had cast me as the one who carried the load while Nathan got the praise. It wasn't my fault, she said, but it had shaped how I saw myself, unworthy unless I was useful. Those sessions were hard. I cried, reliving moments I'd buried. Mom's dismissive comments, Dad's silence, Nathan's entitlement. But they were also freeing. I started to understand that my worth wasn't tied to what I could do for others. It was about who I was, not what I gave. I threw myself into rebuilding. I launched my event planning business, Meaningful Moments, with a mission to create celebrations that didn't bankrupt anyone. No more ice sculptures or overpriced linens, just real, heartfelt events. My first client was a couple in Bishop Arts, planning a small wedding on a tight budget. Helping them felt like healing, like taking back the joy the wedding had stolen from me. I worked out of my apartment, surrounded by vision boards and vendor lists, building something that was mine. In Dallas, where big money often defines success, I found pride in doing things differently. Therapy gave me tools to set boundaries, something I'd never learned growing up. I stopped answering Mom's calls unless I was ready. I told Dad we'd talk when I chose, not when he demanded. It was small, but it felt like power. In Texas, we don't talk about therapy much. It's seen as a last resort, a sign you're broken. But for me, it was strength. It was choosing myself over the family script I'd been handed. I started journaling too, writing down the pain and the progress, the moments I felt strong and the ones I didn't. Slowly, I began to see myself not as the daughter who wasn't enough, but as a woman who was more than enough. The condo fund I'd lost was coming back together, one client at a time. I walked through Bishop Arts, imagining my own place, a space free from my family's expectations. It wasn't just about money, it was about building a life where I called the shots. In Dallas, where family ties can feel like chains, I was learning to break free. If you've ever had to rebuild after a betrayal, what helped you find your way? Drop your story in the comments. Let's share the journey. The weeks after the confrontation were tense, but change started to creep in. My mother, Diane, called one evening, her voice stiff but softer than usual. "I'm seeing someone," she said, pausing. "A therapist." I almost dropped the phone. In Texas, therapy for someone like Mom, polished, perfect, always in control, was unheard of. She didn't apologize outright, but she admitted the wedding had gotten out of hand. It was the closest she'd ever come to accountability. I didn't trust it fully, but it was a crack in her armor, a sign something might shift. Nathan reached out too, meeting me for coffee in Dallas Deep Ellum. His apology was raw, unpolished. "I didn't know Mom took your phone, Allie. But I knew you were paying for everything and I didn't stop it. I'm sorry." He promised to pay me back over time, starting with small monthly transfers. I nodded, unsure if I could forgive him yet, but his guilt felt real. He was starting to see the family dynamic for what it was, the way Mom and Dad had pitted us against each other. It wasn't healing, not yet, but it was a start. Dad was slower to change, his pride as stubborn as Texas heat. But he stopped pushing for family meetings and started asking about my business, even if it was awkward. I set clear boundaries. No more favors, no more expectations. In Dallas, family is supposed to be your everything, but I learned it's okay to love from a distance, to protect yourself first. I put a deposit on a condo in Bishop Arts, a small victory, a space free from Mom's taste, Dad's rules, Nathan's shadow. In Texas, we're taught to hold family close, even when it hurts. But I'm learning that family doesn't mean unconditional sacrifice. I'm building a life where I matter, where my voice counts. If you've ever had to redraw the lines with family, what changed for you? Share it in the comments, I'm listening. This story wasn't just about the $8,400 my mother stole, or the $22,786 I spent on my brother's wedding. It was about learning a truth I wish I'd known sooner. My worth isn't tied to what I give others, especially not my family. Growing up in Dallas, I was taught family comes first, no matter the cost. You sacrifice, you stay loyal, you keep the peace, even when it breaks you. But peace that demands your silence, your savings, your self-respect isn't peace. It's a trap. I spent years trying to be the daughter my parents wanted, the sister Nathan needed, only to realize their love came with conditions. Standing up to them at that brunch, laying out every receipt, every text, every dollar I'd lost, that was the moment I chose myself. Here's what I've learned, and I hope it helps you too. First, protect your money. Check your accounts regularly, use two-factor authentication, and never share your PIN, even with family. In Texas, we trust kin with everything, but trust can be a weapon. Second, if family crosses a line, don't be afraid to get help. My friend Sophia's lawyer letter changed everything. It showed I was serious, that I wouldn't back down. Third, try therapy. In Dallas, we don't talk about it much. It's seen as a weakness, something you do when you're broken. But therapy isn't breaking, it's building. It helped me see I wasn't the problem, that my family's dynamic was. Those sessions with Dr. Bennett gave me tools to rebuild my life, to set boundaries, to value myself. In Texas, we're taught to keep family drama quiet, but sometimes speaking up is the only way to heal. If you've ever had to fight for your worth, what lessons did you learn? Share them in the comments. I'm listening. I'm still on this journey, learning what it means to love my family without losing myself. In Dallas, where family ties are as strong as our Texas pride, that's no small feat. I've put a deposit on a condo in Bishop Arts, a place that's mine, free from my mother's expectations or my father's rules. I've built meaningful moments, my event planning business, to create celebrations that don't cost everything, because no one should have to give up their dreams for a single day. This story, my story, is about more than money or betrayal. It's about finding the strength to stand up, to demand respect, to build a life where you matter. I'm not the Allison who walked into that brunch, scared and silent. I'm someone new, someone who knows her worth. If this story hit home, if you've ever felt used or invisible in your own family, know this: you're enough just as you are. You don't have to earn love with sacrifices that break you. In Texas, we're taught to hold family close, but sometimes you have to hold yourself closer. I want to hear from you. Have you ever confronted family for crossing a line? What gave you the courage to speak up? Drop your story in the comments. I read every single one, and your words mean the world. If this video resonated, hit that like button. It helps others find this story. Subscribe and ring the bell to join me for more stories of breaking free, of finding strength after betrayal. Next time, I'll share how I rebuilt my life after this, starting my business, setting boundaries, and creating a home that's truly mine. You won't want to miss it. In Dallas, we're taught to keep going no matter what. But now I'm going forward on my terms. Thank you for being here, for listening, for sharing this journey with me. Together we can rewrite what family means, what strength looks like. Let's keep the conversation going. Share your story below, and I'll see you in the next video.